So the topic for today's panel is examining how research-based startups became a success story. Now, it's an interesting topic because obviously we all know that research is incredibly vital for any business to thrive, right? But whether you're looking at market research or consumer behavior, product testing, or advancing technology, like research is obviously very, very important, and every venture can benefit from research. But what we're here to talk about is the different ways research can impact a company. So, and how much like each company is willing to invest into research. And that's not just money, that's also time and energy and how dependent you are on these different ways of doing research. And we have a very interesting panel here for that because they are all using research in very, very different ways, from businesses that began in lab and then went into the market to businesses that slowly embedded research into their work over time. So without any further ado, I would like to start by asking, maybe we can start with Sharmin, ladies first, okay? My first question is, can you just tell us a little bit about your venture and also what kind of research you engage in and how it has impacted your work?
So I'd love to talk about what we are doing at Instoried. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is a great platform to be at. So we are a 3-year-old startup based out of Bangalore and San Jose, but yeah, the parent company is of course Bangalore because Bangalore's home. So what we do essentially is that we use artificial intelligence to help content marketers globally create better content in order to increase the return on their marketing investments. So we've been doing this for about 3 years now, and yeah, we have used about 50 million plus data points. And as the panel discussion is around, a lot of research essentially because it's completely been built in-house. And now we have about 3 million plus users who are using the platform. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Can I also ask the same question to Prateek? Please tell us, how are you using research in your venture?
So I would like to introduce Embryyo. Embryyo is a medical device studio which develop medical technologies, and our objective is to build technologies from concept to a stage where we de-risk all 3 verticals of a technology, which is business, clinical, and technology. And once this is done, we focus to license those technologies out or exit those to medtech companies. The whole driver for this is we, as in more a technology-driven persons, we want to develop like we used to say that we used to develop 1,000 innovations in let's say 10 years. So we started in 2014, me and my founder Nishant. So we both were like friends in college from IIT Bombay, and then we had some experience in medtech industry and I was a pure technologist. I always like to work in different domains, not specifically medtech devices, but he brings more the medtech domain. And slowly, when we both met together in 2014, we started with developing medtech devices. So for us, research is like the core element. We start with talking to doctors or reading literature, which is scientific journals, or licensing technologies. So we have done all 3 parts. We have developed our own technologies, invented them, patented them, and we have also in-licensed technologies and taken it to a level where it can reach to the end user through a big medtech company. So currently 3 of our devices are also have been taken to the market through medtech device companies. So yeah.
Thank you, Prateek. Yeah. Krishna, I would like to ask you the same question. Can you tell us about what kind of research you engage in primarily and how it has impacted your work?
Yeah, sure. So we are Cropin. We are a deep tech company in agriculture. We use earth observation, crop sciences, and AI sciences together. We blend it together to solve some of the complex challenges in the industry, right from ranging from predicting a farm or what disease can happen, or carbon side of the issue, or deforestation, right? So many complex challenges we solve right from traceability. We have, today, our platform is getting used in 56 countries. We manage around 500 different crops, 10,000 different varieties of crop, over 25 million acres of production. And we have built the world's largest knowledge graph. We have launched the world's first industry cloud for intelligent agriculture. To give you a scale, we can compute a country like India or Nigeria, and we can tell you which farm parcel is on wheat, or which one is doing soybean, what is the stress, what is the yield you can expect out of it. So basically, you can future forecast the crop trends. And we have more than 100 plus enterprise across the globe. We have scaled this technology on 32 different crops, which is 80% of the global agriculture, which covers the arable land. And the vision of the company is to compute crop intelligence on 1/3 of the planet in the next 3 years and make every farm traceable, predictable, and sustainable. Right. So that's it.
Thank you so much. And while I still have you here, just to expand on that, because you have seen so much significant growth and you have plans to also continue that, how has your investment in research changed?
So when we started agriculture, as you know, if you are investing in AI, you need tons of data, trillions of data set to train your models. And when we started back in 2010, there was no data in agriculture, right? So everything was on silos, pen and paper, and the intelligence was getting lost over every season. The first thing we have to build was the SOP in the industry, that how do you think data in agriculture and how do you structure that data and create metadata out of it so that you can take advantage of intelligence going forward. And we waited around 5 to 6 years to get the spread across the globe, to get the representation in the data sets. So today, when we say we manage 500 crops and 10,000 different varieties in 56 countries, that means we have a range of representation that how does corn behaves in India versus LATAM versus Africa in Kenya or in Australia, right? So and then there are different varieties who react differently to soil or environment, and you have to build the crop knowledge graph. So that's the thing which powers your AI, right? So we waited 6 years to have that data, and we then invested into Cropin AI Lab, which has now built around 22 different models which can compute a country at the scale and tell you, what crop, what stage. It can also detect, whether your cotton farm has reached a flowering stage or it is still in the vegetative stage. It can tell you how much bag you can harvest after 13 days. It can tell you when is a disease going to hit in next 15 days, right? So we have built a lot of models which we have shipped. So it helps the whole agri ecosystem as a whole, and also a farmer. So I think there are a lot of investment went into it on the data side, building the infrastructure, building technology for scale, because you're talking about petabyte of compute. India is 3.2 million square kilometer area, and you have to create a grid of 10 by 10 meter, and then you have to layer the intelligence. And that too, there are thousands of variables on every pixel. So you're talking about petabyte of compute, and then how do you scale country to country, right? So I think right in the data set, the fundamentals, the technology stack, and then building those compute, which is scalable, and then giving a context to your model is a big investment, and you can't do it in a day zero, right? You have to take that stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and you have to monitor your TRL levels, right? So what is the readiness of your model and how scalable it is, right? Does it work only in this region, or you can transpose this or transfer learn or do representation learning to take the wheat model, global model, and then apply in Australia or any part of the world and give the same consistent results.
Yeah. Thank you. And actually, you brought up a really important point about recognition of the research that you're doing, and because people need to believe, especially when you're working with people who aren't aware of the research you're doing, getting that credited, making it credible can also be is incredibly important. And actually, Prateek, I would like to come to you on this point too, because you are in a similar kind of a, stage where you are doing the research on your own. They're all your own IPs. So can you tell me a little bit about how has your work in that changed, and what challenges have you seen, and how have you kind of grown from that?
Okay, so I'll quickly once tell us about what type of products we have done and what are we envisioning. So we have developed technologies which are implantable, like non-vascular self-expandable stents, which we did for esophagus, then bilirubin meters for non-invasive bilirubin meters for neonates who get jaundice in the first couple of days after the birth. Or we have developed even IoT-based solution for tuberculosis, improving the drug adherence for tuberculosis. So it has ranged from different domains. So our only interest was into developing the whole technology and then licensing it out. So from your as per your question, so the main challenge here was to actually one is the ecosystem, which was not actually ready to actually absorb those technologies. We initially started with the government grants, and we won like 2 Gates Foundation grants and 2 DBT grants. But there was no uptake from the industry of those technologies which are a little ahead of the curve. And, uh, and this was first part, and the second challenge was on the people side where the industry, so when in 2017, we also started like invention as a service business in parallel when we were talking to MNCs or Indian manufacturers. So the Indian ecosystem, they see invention as a design project. They don't value it as the deep tech, the technology which you're developing, or you're putting your maths, physics, or scientific approach towards it. They don't look into that, and hence it is not easy to scale as well as not easy to get revenues out of it. So hence we slowly evolved into a mechanism where we can engage, like with MNCs, it was not a problem. They used to value these technologies, but hence we slowly evolved to actually build a ecosystem where we can talk to MNCs, take them on board initially from the day one. When we think of a technology, there is an exit partner or there is a licensing partner with us. And along with it, we have Indian manufacturers who have been, who will develop these in a proper good manufacturing processes, labs and manufacturing facilities. And at the same time, get KOLs or the clinicians initially. So like right now we are doing one with Mayo Clinic and Merck and combining all of them so that we get a good outcome.
All right. No, thank you so much for that answer. And Sharmin, I come to you now. You've heard what your co-panelists have said. If you have any comments on that, and also if you could just tell us, how did the research you do change your business, and how has your investment changed over time? Like not just fund-wise, but also like again dependency on the research. How are you evolving it? Are you growing it? How is that going?
So yeah, when you're a startup, especially in the deep tech space, there is a continuous research that has to go in, obviously, right? Needless to say that. So how we started, so this is my second startup. So after exiting from my first startup, which was in the media space, video content, we were, building India's very own Netflix. So we made all of our mistakes in that. At least I know that I did. Then, after 3.5 years of running that, because the geo-internet revolution was still picking up in India, so we understood that we were a little ahead of our time. So that was a very, very impulsive decision of starting that company. But then we did have a pretty good exit because we ended up selling the copyrights of all our scripts to a nice Bombay-based production house. And I must say that it's quite overwhelming for me now because I see some of my content trending on Prime and I can't even claim any rights on it because I sold it. I was like, yaar, ek saal aur ruk jati. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, after that, before starting Instoried, so how it happened was actually, I think it was the universe which wanted me to do this, So I was at Harvard studying neuromarketing. It was just a very, very random thing. I'm a very impulsive person, so I was like, I want to study about neuromarketing. So when I went there to, understand what neuromarketing is, a bunch of incredible neuroscientists and neuromarketers, they said that gone are the days of all the conventional forms of marketing. Now is the time to neuromarket your product, which essentially means that, you don't sell to, you're not trying to sell to anyone and everyone, but you're trying to sell to a very, very, a particular audience. You have to know who is your TG, your target, group, and then ensure that you sell to their brain. So hence neuromarket, right? Because it's a very global, well-known fact that all of our consumer decision making, all the customer buying patterns are driven by emotions and not by logic. Hence the reason why I thought of buying an iPhone and not an MI because, I know that incredible pictures, number one. Number two, of course, the whole exclusivity prestige club that comes along with it, right? So what we understood is that how do you sell emotionally to your customers, So we did an extensive amount of research. There's a Nielsen study from 2017 which says that if you can bring in emotional, as an emotion-based selling into your marketing content, into, with your salesmen, what will happen is that you will see an upside of at least 35 to 40% on your ROIs, which is incredible. So now we were like, how do we do this using technology, right? So that's where, so then we ended up talking to the Oxford University, because like we know they are the big daddies of English language, and we are only in English, at least so far. So we decided to get about 10 million data points from them. Then we hired a bunch of linguists from St. Stephen's in Delhi, because my co-founder is a Delhi boy, and he's like, I have to get people from Delhi. I'm like, amazing. As long as they are smart, I don't care where they come from. And then those people ended up scraping, another 40, 50 million plus data points, and then, structured them, and then tagged them to the, required tones and emotions and all of that, and then build a data set of 50 million plus data points. Now, this was a very, very time-consuming exercise, took over 18 months. So all of this was definitely, backed by a very, very powerful research, thanks to the 500-odd neuromarketers and neuroscientists from Harvard that I'd spoken with. And, since I was a part of that forum, that definitely helped. So yes, needless to say this, that, do not just start a company just because you want to make money, because unfortunately, most people, actually, even I belong to that group. We've ended up raising a ton of money, so I can't deny it. But most startups, unfortunately, these days are just talking about valuation and not value creation. But now I think we are at a stage where we are talking more about the impact. So yeah, it is definitely research-backed, and now we are seeing some real customers and real value.
You're talking about making money, but everyone will tell you that data is the new currency. So in that matter, you're definitely getting ahead of everyone else. No, thank you for sharing that. Since we are now getting into the crux of research and IPs, so I would like to start with Prateek on this. Can you tell us how do you preserve IPs when you're moving from lab to market?
So there are two aspects of IP. One is like maintaining an IP. IP can be know-how, patent, or any design registrations. So when you translate the IP, there are two things. One is maintaining the IP, and another is how are you building upon that IP. So there are two pathways through which you get the IP. You in-license it, or you develop your own IP. So when you in-license it, there is a lot of chance that you might miss the foreground IP building upon it. And when it comes from lab to business, it is very challenging, because in the lab the technology has been developed in a very controlled environment and a controlled data set. And when you try to scale it up, there are a lot of reliability-based challenges. And sometimes it also doesn't fit the end application. So the company has to find the right application which fits the market. And hence, so this is one approach. But while building the technology and raising it to the end customer, taking it to the end industry, there are a lot of technology development you do while testing, or while making a product out of it, or the process of manufacturing. Everything is IP. So one has to be very alert, or there is a person in the team, or there should be a consultant who is alert about those IPs which are developing, so that you are actually not even preserving, but building upon it. And then whole asset is now a bigger sellable asset, or you can say which can be licensed or exitable. The second is our own IP. So in our own IP, there is one part which is we have developed the IP, we have patent, but now it comes to what market you are taking those IPs to. Let's say if it is a US market, then you have to go to the process of patenting, maybe from India, then PCT, and then going to US, or any geography which you want to protect it. You have to actually take those decisions and take the IPs accordingly, so that you can actually sell those, and it is actually become valuable to the company when you exit it out. because it is protected in those markets.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very insightful and incredibly important information for those who are working with largely research-based startups, which there are plenty of, but we don't necessarily hear about this side of the conversation. Krishna, I would like to come to you and ask you similarly, what are the challenges involved in licensing, preserving, and then building IPs?
So a lot of debate happened, right? How do we go about the IP? And we talked to many of the consultants and in the industry. So there are two ways, right? Either why do you want that IP, right? Do you want to get into a battle if somebody does that? Or it's offensive or it's a defensive strategy? That's the first level you have to decide if you are in a research company. And the second is, in the IP also, you don't want, so there is a patent which you want to go for. And there are patentable things which you don't want to reveal and you want to keep it as a trade secret. Yeah. So how much you want to patent and what is your trade secret, you have to really decide, and that's a very difficult, I'm sure, very difficult decision to make because, as an engineer or as a research scientist, you always want to go for the patent, right? So whether you want to, what are the things which you want to patent it, and what are things you want to keep it as a trade secret, which you really don't want to reveal right now, and you want to create a momentum based that. And the third is, publications, right? So these are the three things. So because you are going to, when you are building an AI company, you are dealing with all the PhDs and researchers, and their motivation is to publish. Yes. The moment you restrict them, they don't see value in what they're creating, right? So then you have to create those balance and the framework for your organization, what suits you.
No, thank you again, and that was really good to hear about. Now, Sharmin, you mentioned that you actually work with researchers. So tell me about your experience with dealing with IPs.
First of all, some reality check, and I'm sorry for being so frank and straightforward. If you want to get an IP, India is not the country for you. Okay, go to Singapore or US. That's a fact. There's too much of plagiarism happening. It's unfortunate, but a lot of work needs to go around that. Yeah. So if you want an IP, Indian IP laws suck. Please go to Singapore or to the US. It's a fact because I've seen how much we've struggled and how much money we've wasted doing all the BS. But please don't invest in India. Especially if you have some mind-blowing work that you've done, especially, fields like agri-tech, and then, medical work like what, you guys have done. Right. So having said that, first of all, there is a lot of, misunderstanding about when you talk about software and hardware. Patenting a hardware, product or some sort of a development that you've had, it's extremely easy. But patenting something, for example, an algorithm, which is maybe something that your research team or like we have these masters in natural language processing and guys who've done it from US and from Finland. When they are trying to, let's say, get a patent on their algorithm, you can't do it. So patenting a software product, it's extremely difficult. But what you can definitely do is the process in which you've built it, right? Because that is something that is exclusive to your company. Like, for example, for us, if we were to get an IP, which we are trying to now, for us, it is about, the way we've extracted the data, and then the way we've structured it and then tagged it to the relative emotions and tones, considering the work that we've done. So that process, that whole cycle, that can definitely be patented. Again, not in India, go to Singapore or US.
No, thank you for that advice. I'm glad that there are students here to hear that in case they ever come across this. But hopefully, I'm optimistic that we will also get there, and we can also do this in India. Coming towards the end of this discussion, I have to ask, and let's start with Prateek again this time. What are your expansion plans?
So now we are at a stage where till now we are a bootstrap company. We have revenues, but the model which we are actually working on till now was developing technologies and then licensing it out. But now we are actually focusing on getting in companies from the day one, as I mentioned. And then raise investment, and now this becomes an investment model which is actually investable. So we are raising investment now. And on the other side, now we are also moving on two-phase approach. One is where we are more connected to the industry, And one is where we are more connected to a very deep tech and next generation medical devices, let's say drug delivery in the brain parenchyma, or let's say maybe chemotherapy through peritoneum. So there are technologies, but there are very challenging to right now to access those technologies. So, and there are a lot of challenges which we are actually targeting in the second half. And the first half is actually talking to industries and get a right problem. Like, as I say, the problem could be how can you improve the current peritoneum dialysis process, or let's say how can you improve the ICU beds for more smarter outcomes. So those are the major areas where we are focusing. Earlier, the devices were focused based on the funding availability, and the ecosystem which was driving, which is more of a socio-economic devices. But now we want to focus more on a deep tech devices. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And Krishna, I know you've already told us a little bit about your plans for the next 3 years and stuff, but maybe you can tell us about, you have seen a lot of success in this. How do you maintain that?
I think investment is, in any journey, you have to keep investing it to be ahead in the game. And so our expansion plan, if you look at, so we are 220 people organization right now. We just opened, last year we opened our office in Hague, Netherlands, because a lot of our customers sits around that in Europe. We had already customers in Southeast Asia, Africa, Latam, and US, and we sold it sitting here. Now we started our subsidiary in Singapore this year, and then we created another subsidiary in US. We have sales marketing in Brazil and Kenya and Nigeria. So we have people. So now we are a global team. Earlier it was more India-centric. So we built for India, and we are for the world now. And the major portion of investment in our kind of a company is technology, and it's going to be so going forward as well. And a lot of, so let's say 50 to 60% is, when you are a research and tech-based company, your 50 to 60% goes into technology, and then your 30% goes into sales and marketing, and that's going to remain. Your investment amount will increase. We have raised close to $35 million, and now we are currently raising around 50 to 75, and we are closing pre-Series D round right now. So I think we'll be investing more, and we have just launched the world first industry cloud for intelligent agriculture, like a retail cloud or a healthcare cloud, right? This is a first of its own kind, and we are going to invest more in the developed market. And we already have customers in those markets, so it makes sense for us to sit closer to them and go deeper with their use cases as well. Yeah. So the investment pace is going to increase, and that's where we are.
Thank you. Sharmin, what about you? What is the next steps?
So we have a very clear roadmap and vision in place. We are a company that has been raising money every 6 months, pretty much. My investors love me for that, but my team hates me because they're like, more the money that you raise, crazier are the milestones that you give us, and they think I'm insane, which is true. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running a company, I think. So we are about 50 plus people now, and the first thing for me is to, like Krishna also said, right, the global expansion. So we have, now plans to expand globally. So we have set up a, team in the US, a small team in Europe, and then, looking at UK, etc. So number one for me is of course always manpower. I want to invest into my employees as much as possible, quite irrelevant, but I'd like to say this: we are 60% women, and I love talking about it because thanks. And no, actually, my co-founder is a much bigger feminist than I am, or I'm not sure. Probably he's scared of his wife, so he has no other option. So we are actively hiring women around the globe. So that is one. Second thing is, of course, investing into a lot of marketing now, because so far we were not doing that. So now, investing into marketing. And third thing, now I'm looking at getting to profitability in the, by the end of the next financial year. So we have some strict deadlines in place, and we should be able to achieve them because we have built a pretty good pipeline right now. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. I think what we've learned is, again, invest, expand, research, and protect. Those are the At least for me, the takeaways from here. Thank you so much for joining me today on this discussion. And thank you for the audience for also staying and just listening to this conversation and engaging with the panelists. All right, that is all for our discussion. Thank you so much.